I think DNA testing is a wonderful asset to the whole family tree research. Like you're putting together a puzzle. It's a big detective game. And DNA can help you verify the parts that you might not have found elsewhere. Like you can verify the paper trail, but you can also find information that you would never know that was there. You can make connections with people that you didn't even know that you connected with before, and you match. At the molecular level, you share a bit of their DNA, meaning you had a common ancestor. And I think it's just a wonderful addition to the family tree research. I started with DNA in 2005, actually. The Kerr project administrator contacted me, and Kerr is my maiden name. And he said, do you have a male relative that could test? And so that's when I went to my brother and I said, it's your turn to help with the family tree. And he sort of said, well, you're the genealogist, what can I do? And I said, well, you can donate your DNA. So he did that, and it was really cool. We got a match with a fellow with the exact same name as my brother, right down to the middle name. Yeah. He got a match, my brother got a match with a fellow with the exact same name, William Edward Kerr, and this fellow was in Ohio. And our Kerrs came from Ireland to Quebec, and we've been trying to find a specific connection back to Ireland. And the Ohio bill, I like to call him, has a connection back to England. And so I've been researching this fellow's family tree as well as ours to see if we can find the connection. We had a fellow contact us through Family Tree DNA. He sent us an email, sent my husband an email, and said that he matched my husband. And I have a website where I have all our surnames on this particular website. And I said, please go and look at this. This has all my husband's surnames on it and the locations. And the fellow looked at the list and said, oh, I know where we match. It's easy. This is an easy one. We matched your husband's Salem witch. And I thought, oh, well, that's cool. But he said, I also noticed your names on this particular website. And I matched through, I'm quarter French Canadian, and I matched you too. And this was really amazing. He's got the Lemoyne name in his family tree, and we share the same 9th great-grandmother from Paris, France, which I thought was a really cool story to have found this person that matched both my husband and myself, although my husband and I don't match. It turns out that the match for my husband's match from family tree DNA for autosomal DNA was to one of the Salem witches, Mary Town Esty, and her descendants had moved up through New Brunswick, and then that's where my husband's family were. And so she was one of his I don't know how many great-grandmothers back, but they shared the same Salem witch. One of the things people always ask when they start out with DNA testing is where to test. And I think the best place to test is the one with the largest database, because you have the most number of chances of making a DNA match. And Family Tree DNA has one of the largest databases, and I think it's a great place to test for that particular reason. I've been a genealogist for about 20 years. It was my grandmother that got me into this. She was a family historian, and I had a grandfather that kept a diary for 60 years, if you can believe it. So I was fortunate in that on one line I had all this information, but on my father's side of the family, I didn't have those family historians and genealogists that had paved the way and had given the stories. So I had to go to something else, and that's why when we got into DNA testing, I thought this is going to break down the big brick wall, and we're going to find connections, and we have found connections. We haven't found our specific link back to Ireland yet, but with DNA, I am sure we're going to find that. I think it's one of the best tools that you can add to your toolbox as a genealogist. I think it's a great thing to have. For years, we've been trying to connect two groups of Kerrs in Quebec. I've been talking to this lady in Boston, and we've been meeting each other on the forums and going back and forth and back and forth. Finally, we got to the point I said, don't you have somebody that you can test for DNA? Because this would end it. Do we really know for sure whether our Kerrs are connected? They had Kerr and Henderson, the two names that we had. And so she got somebody finally to test, and we weren't. It was a negative result, and it was very important because the negative results show you that you don't need to keep researching in that particular area. And we'd probably spent 10 years doing this particular one, trying to get our two families to match. So that was one time when the DNA solved a problem and we figured out we don't match and we could go on and leave that one behind. We didn't have this option even 11 years ago. I think it was around 2000 or so when we started having the option to be able to use DNA as one of our tools. And when I first got into it, it was in 2005 because someone came along, the project administrator, asked me if my brother could test, or if someone, I had a male in the family that could test, that I really got involved in it. But I think it's just a wonderful way to enhance our family tree research. And this is a tool we did not have 10, 11 years ago. Okay, when my brother first got the match, he thought it was really cool that this fellow had the exact same name as him. And it turns out that we're in Calgary, Alberta, and this match is in Ohio. And the Ohio Bills matches go back to England, whereas our matches go Quebec to Ireland. And at some place, there's a mutual connection there. And we had this DNA match that I think would eventually go all the way back to the border of Scotland, if we can only find where they are. So we've been tracing the paper trail to see if we can figure out just where this match is. My husband got a match, and it was autosomal DNA, where you're getting matches from, you don't know where they're from, you have to figure it out. But he got this match, and it was a really close one between second and third cousin. So we got, the emails were going back and forth, and we were trying to figure out just where this match was. It turns out it's his second cousin, once removed, from New Brunswick. His dad is originally from New Brunswick. We narrowed it down within about 3 emails. It was fantastic. They have photos. It was a really great find. We had no idea that this person even existed before we did this. And so it's been one of our best matches to date. My husband's grandmother was Cora Hillman, and our DNA match, or his DNA match, was to a brother of Cora Hillman. So that made the match was a descendant of Judson Hillman, making them a second cousin once removed. So it was interesting research, and we would have never found this particular match if we hadn't done DNA. So I've been a genealogist for about 20 years or so, and I got into the genetic genealogy in 2005, and that's using the DNA for genealogy. And having this match, we would have never found this person and never would have gone off in this direction, and it has really been great to have these kinds of DNA matches to give us new avenues to research in our family tree. So my brother got a DNA match with a fellow in Ohio, and we didn't even know this guy existed. We would have never ever found him at any point, because this fellow's research had taken his ancestors back to a place in England, whereas my brothers and my family is Quebec to Ireland. But they're all, the Kerr family name is originally from the border of Scotland and England. So eventually, hopefully, we'll connect and get those two back to and meet up in Scotland. We hope.